Today on Good Morning Providence, Rhode Island's own Governor Dan McKee is joining us right here by my side, live in studio, sharing the goals for Ocean State residents to look forward to in the months ahead. Governor Dan McKee, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence this morning.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. We are glad to have you. Now, of course, there are several topics that we want to address this morning, but on the heels of the announcement, what many people heard across the state yesterday concerning the Washington Bridge, we really have to start there. First, really, what do you have to say to Rhode Islanders on the heels of hearing that what is already impacting their commutes so intensely is likely going to be prolonged for longer than expected?
Yeah, so we're going to keep on getting the information from the engineers to kind of give us the roadmap, so to speak, the timetable. So we'll kind of continue gathering that information with Peter Alvidi, our Director of Transportation. Again, that was not a planned closure in December. It was meant to be a safety issue. We know that it provided a great deal of large inconvenience. We understand that, so we kind of continue to apologize for that in ways, but understand these are things that you can't predict. And once you get the need to do it, it's a very easy decision to make. Let's be safe. Let's be as quickly as we can. But safety is the key, and we're going to have to rely on the engineers to give us guidance going forward. Right now, there's options that have been laid out, but right now we're kind of holding to the original strategy of repairing until we hear anything different from the engineers, and then we'll kind of keep everybody posted.
Well,
let me
ask this. You sit at an interesting juncture between hearing from legislators, from hearing from our community members on calls for accountability, and also from Washington. Washington, with particularly the Biden administration, has poured and pumped more than $1 billion into infrastructure over the past 3 years, specifically for roads and bridges. Are we hearing any calls from Washington about accountability there, or how is that process going as far as seeking additional funding from Washington to assist with this?
We're talking to our congressional delegation, also to the Secretary of Transportation, as well as people in Washington that have been very helpful, as you said. They're going to continue to be helpful. They've got a great deal of confidence what has happened over the last few years. 400 bridges have been repaired or replaced in Rhode Island alone. So we know that we have to be smart about how we invest the dollars, but when you get a situation like the Washington Bridge, right, that comes on you, you do the right thing, you make the decision based on safety, based on the information you have, and now we're out really working with 24/7 on the issues there to make sure that we're getting the information, the right information from our engineers to make the decisions going forward. It's not like a policy issue where you debate, oh, we should do this or should do that. It's going to be very clear what needs to be done there, and we know that it creates an inconvenience on the traffic and the travel time. But as I think people need to continue to layer in that time frame if they happen to be traveling east or west off the Washington Bridge on a daily basis.
Last question on this topic before we move on to another. I know that we just recently canceled the ferry service that was implemented to kind of help the commuters move through that. That was more than $1 million. How much are we expecting for this project to cost, and how much has it cost thus far already for the surveys that are being conducted to find out what's going on and what else needs to be done?
Yeah, so the ferry service was one that kind of get in place very quickly, knowing that we didn't know exactly how long we would have before we could travel both east and west on the Washington Bridge. It was canceled because the usage was not that high, yet the effort was there to try to accommodate travel time. As far as the total cost, we're going to be, we're certainly going to be adding that up. But the main thing for us to do is, and I think that the director mentioned it yesterday, is to get it right. What it costs, we have to kind of budget for. We are looking for assistance from our federal delegation, which they're providing that, as well as from our, from the Secretary of Transportation, which is very engaged with what's going on. So it's not going to be inexpensive. Bridges do cost a great deal of money to repair, and this is not going to be any different. But we're going to be able to manage it to make sure that the bridge is open as soon as safely possible.
It's good to hear that you are in contact with Pete Buttigieg, I believe is the man there. Now, getting this bridge in place and working and functional again is going to require a bit of manpower. So let's talk about jobs and the money that you are hoping to increase for Rhode Islanders into this year and beyond. We heard you give the budget allocations there, and we're looking to increase how much Rhode Islanders are making. How are we going to do that?
Well, we've been doing it, making sure that the dollars that we've had, that you mentioned about the federal dollars, we've allocated with the assistance and partnership with the General Assembly, the Speaker and the Senate President, into projects that put people to work on good paying jobs, whether it's on the roads or the bridges, right? Or whether it's down in Galilee with investment in the fishing industry, or whether it's in Quonset investing in the import-export strategy down there in the offshore wind area. So we're starting a life science strategy in the state of Rhode Island, Life Science Hub, which we put money in the budget last year. We're going to be asking the voters to approve a life science building on the URI campus. We created a cybersecurity school at Rhode Island College. Former Congressman Langevin heading that up, and he's the preeminent expert on cybersecurity in the entire country out of Washington. So, and then we're going to be asking the voters again to approve improvements there, a building there for a cybersecurity school, put 1,000 students in that school in 5 years, graduate 250 in six-figure jobs. So it's all laid out, but part of the strategy is putting people to work, building those things, right?
Right.
Building a health lab in downtown Providence, which is a public-private partnership that's going to have over 200,000 square feet of life science space, 80,000 square feet for the state of Rhode Island's health lab, and 120,000 square feet for private industry to kind of help with the life sciences. So I think it's strategically investing our dollars in ways that put people to work, and then the work that's done pays dividends for decades to come.
You brought up one point that I do definitely want to hear you expound on a little bit, this wind energy. We've got the Revolution Wind Project that is revolutionizing energy along our coastlines. Talk to us a little bit about the impact that you are looking forward to that and other energy sources having, particularly as we look at what, for example, Massachusetts is doing.
So investing in our renewables is a really big opportunity for the state of Rhode Island. The Revolution Wind, which Ørsted is building, they have agreed to continue this project to impact Rhode Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island in particular. Think about this. That wind is going to be generating electricity for 263,000 homes in the state of Rhode Island. That's a big deal for a state with 1 million people and probably 600,000, 700,000 homes or something like that, right? So a big chunk, but the good news there as well is that the cost is going to be a constant 9.8 cents a kilowatt for 20 years. So we're not only investing in the wind, the renewables for the environmental reasons, but we're also investing because it's a great opportunity for us to control our energy costs. Here in Rhode Island, we don't have an oil well, and we're not going to have one. We don't have we're not going to have a natural gas line as other states might have. But we have wind, and wind is like our energy source. And we're going to be asking Washington, we talked about Washington a few seconds ago, we're going to be asking them to subsidize our wind like they subsidize fossil fuels in other states. So on fossil fuel subsidy, almost $650 billion is going to states who have been hosting fossil fuel production, fracking, natural gas. We expect, and Senator Whitehouse is leading the charge, one of our senators, about making sure that Rhode Island gets the same treatment as decades of subsidies that have gone to states that have hosted one of the most important resources at the time was oil. But now Rhode Island, it's about the wind and it's about the industry. Investing at CCRI for a school over there that helps develop the training for the offshore wind. At the Prov port right now, we are manufacturing the bases for offshore wind bases all over the East Coast. So this is a big opportunity for Rhode Island, very similar to the life science I just talked about, very similar to the cybersecurity, in addition to the staples in the state, which has to do with our tourism and our hospitality, which is a big deal, and we're investing in that too.
All right, great. Some glimmers that you brought up there, and talking about kind of placing Rhode Island strategically in that wind energy conversation. So we appreciate your response to that. Let's talk about climate.
Yes.
So climate is a priority that you have emphasized, particularly in speaking about the budget and what we as a state hope to do in 2025. Can you narrow down for those who may not understand how the long-term goals of climate in the state impact them right now?
Right now, it's we want to make sure. First of all, we have a certain amount of. I think anybody that lives on the shorelines know that there's a great deal of weather that is impacting our shorelines.
The
right?
cliffs.
The cliffs in particular. We have some dollars in our green bond that we're going to be proposing. They're going to help with that cliffs. Over 1 million people a year go there, so it's an important economic tool for us and attracts people to the state. We've invested in destination marketing. So we want to invest in the areas that attract people to the state of Rhode Island. Our visits are way up. Over 27 million people visited our state last year. A small state like we have.
Excellent.
Right? So, but in the area that you talked about, we are investing in our dollars into heat pumps, for instance, heat pump programs. We're investing in helping people as they transition into the electric vehicles or the electric bicycles, that type of thing. So we have a really strong department in our energy department that is partnering in with DEM. So Chris Kearns, who heads up our energy department, along with Terry Gray, that heads up our Department of Environmental Management, are teaming up in a real strong way to make sure that the resources that we get are applied into the climate issues, as you said, so that we meet our Act on Climate goals, which is to reduce our carbon footprint by 2030, 40, and 50.
Yep.
And we are involved right now in a way that I'm pleased that we're tracking towards meeting those goals.
Excellent. I do look forward to speaking and finding more information from the DEM about some of the goals that you set forth in some of the executive orders that you placed last year. Speaking of which, I want to talk about the most recent executive order that you issued, I believe on the 29th, just before the end of the year. And this will be the last question before I open the floor. That particular executive order removed some barriers for staffing in nursing homes. Tell me a little bit about why that was necessary and how it helps in the healthcare field.
Well, we really have our budget does reflect investments in our hospitals and in making sure that the payments are accelerated that have been frozen for years for staffing, and so we were doing that before. So that executive order opened up the ability for nurses that were retired nurses or people who were on reciprocal type of licensing that could actually come into Rhode Island. Come in through the pandemic, we found that our nursing homes were very challenged to a high degree. They continue to be challenged. It's reflected in our budget, recognizing that. But staffing is an important issue as well. So we need to make sure, as we're talking about growing incomes right in the state of Rhode Island, you mentioned that briefly in the first part of the conversation. We've got to make sure that we're bringing in staff, we're training staff. Right now we're training staff that will help offset the cost for their education on both nursing and education last year, and healthcare. So we got to make sure we're investing in people so that they can get the training so that they can maximize their earning potential.
Thank you. And lastly, Governor, before we let you go, what are you most looking forward to in the year 2024, and particularly in this first quarter?
First, we got to continue our Learn 365 RI program, where we've set a goal to meet or exceed Massachusetts reading and math levels by 2030, and we're in a position to, after a year's work, 38 out of 39 communities have actually signed a compact. I was in West Greenwich yesterday to sign a compact with them as well, so throughout the whole state. So I think that meeting and those goals that we set for education are really a critical point. And then what we're going to be starting in about, and I think I announced that within 100 days, we have a plan to help raise incomes and personal wealth throughout the state of Rhode Island. We're going to come out with a plan on that. But as I think we talked about, ideas are, let's invest in cybersecurity, 6-figure job. Let's invest in life science. Let's invest in the wind. Let's make sure that we're making investments in frameworks that will really provide opportunity for the people who live in the state of Rhode Island. So I think those are the two main things right now, is is making sure that the education piece continues, working with our secretary, our Commissioner Infante Green, Commissioner of Higher Ed, Shannon Gilkey, making sure that we execute on what we've planted. And now let's start the strategy about earning incomes, personal wealth, and one of the main pieces that I'm going to be focusing on is home ownership. I really believe that we need to have young people like yourself that are coming to Rhode Island have this opportunity to own a home and to build that equity that you only can do as a home ownership. Renters, it's important that they have spaces and homes, but on average, somebody who owns a home will have 40 times the equity or personal wealth than somebody who's renting. So we really need to focus on strategies to bring up the opportunities for housing as well inside of that whole idea of raising incomes and personal wealth.
Governor Dan McKee, we appreciate your input there. If you're just joining us now, we had a wonderful conversation covering everything from what Governor Dan McKee is doing with Washington and Secretary Buttigieg on the Washington Bridge. We talked about infrastructure, education, wind energy, much more. We will get this posted for you on our website, abc6.com. Governor Dan McKee,
thank you.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Welcome to Rhode Island.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
We'll be back in 2 minutes with more after the break.
Great.